Hi, this is my attempt at being your crash course on the word Arirang, its history, what it means, and how significant it is that BTS has chosen Arirang as its keyword ahead of their comeback in 2 days. So undoubtedly, if you're ARMY, you know you're going to be asked sometime this year by a non-Korean speaking mogul, what is Arirang? And you'll have to formulate some type of answer to that question, so hopefully my video and all the other resources online can help you do that with ease. So what does Arirang mean? Well, first and foremost, Arirang is not a word that means anything on its own. It's a name of a folk song. In Korean, this is called minyo. And in Chinese Hanja characters, min means people, the people. Yo means song. And if you have any interest in Korean culture at all, you know both of these words because the min in minyo is the same min in 대한민국, which is the Korean word for Korea. And yo means song, the same song that is in Korean song 가요, aka K-pop. So put together, min, the people, yo, song, is the song of the people. Arirang has been used for centuries as a song of the people, the working class, the people that have made and kept and fought for our country in all forms of life. So people would sing Arirang when they are drinking makgeolli after a hard day of work. People would sing this as a labor song when they're harvesting crops, when they are going through wars, or as an independence fighter fighting for Korea's independence after we've been attacked. It's truly a song that was made for the people, sung by the people, remembered by the people, and passed down by the people through song. So that also means we don't know who exactly created it and when, because it's a song that's been passed down, likely from your father and his father before that, through generations. It is said on paper, though, that there are over 4,000 different versions of Arirang that exist. I personally think that there should be way more numbers documented of different versions of Arirang, just thinking about the Korean diaspora that's been in place since the 60s after the Korean War. Can you imagine all the different versions of Arirang that is sung by Koreans that are abroad? That is also being passed down, and we have no idea of knowing because it's not documented anywhere. So Arirang, as a umbrella term, covers over 4,000 different versions of the song, and the version that you would know would depend solely on what region you grew up in and where your parents and their grandparents grew up in, because that would be the version that would be passed down in your own family. And like any extensive list that exists in the world, there is bound to be a ranking, a top 3. And in this case, this first Arirang, number 1 on our top 3 list, is called Cheongseon Arirang, and it originated in the Gangwon-do province. I'll try to put a photo up here if I can. But if Seoul is here, Gangwon-do is a little further up north, closer to the North Korean border if we look at a map of Korea today. And this Cheongseon version is super significant because it's the first recorded version of Arirang that exists today. And it was written in the time period of the Goryeo dynasty, which is over 1,000 years ago. The song, in my opinion, is the most melancholy of the 3 versions, of the top 3. It is the slowest, and it feels like there's a lot of hun. And what I mean by that is that the people who sang this song, who sang this version of Arirang at the time, were singing it because they had lost their kingdom. Members of the court that no longer had a place of work for them in the original palace because they were overtaken by the Joseon dynasty had a lot of han, had a lot of longing, grief over missing their families, their life back home, grief over how their king is no longer a king and has been dethroned. So this song is probably the saddest out of the 3. The second version of Arirang is the Miryang Arirang, and if Seoul is here, Gangwon-do is here, Miryang is down here, close to Busan, and in the Gyeongsang-do region of Korea. Any army is familiar with Busan and Gyeongsangdo because 3 of the members are from this region, V, Jimin, and Jungkook, which would likely mean that their families would have been most familiar with this version, the Miryang Arirang version. It's also the version that I'm most familiar with because my grandparents lived in Miryang and passed down their version of the Miryang Arirang to me. It's the version that I grew up singing with my grandma when I would visit her. It's the version that she would sing as she made dinner, as she cut up our fruit, as she picked vegetables from the garden behind her house. It's so ingrained into her life through the joys and the sadness of her life, the way Arirang was meant to be sung. So, fun fact about the Miryang Arirang is there's a line here that is not included in any of the other versions of Arirang that is an indicator of the Miryang Arirang if you hear it. And if you were to go back to BTS's 2016 performance, the remix of Arirang that they performed in Paris, you would know exactly when they are singing the Miryang Arirang because of this line. And this line is 날 좀 보소, 날 좀 보소, 날 좀 보소. Please look at me, please see me, please make me feel seen. And I believe it's Jin who sings this line. But if you were now to go back and hear it, you would know immediately. Oh, they're singing the Miryang Arirang. So the last Arirang is the Jindo Arirang, and it originates from a city at the most southern part of Korea. If this is Korea, it would be on the coast, on the very bottom part of Korea. And there's a spirit to this version where there's a lot of gokki. Gokki, I don't know if I should. It's like, Gokki is a way of performance in Korea in spoken art where the emotions inside of you are so brash and so brazen that they need to come out in this kind of motion, where it's not about looking pretty and looking polished. It's about getting the Han inside of you out in any means possible. So to me, it's the most lively version of the top 3 Arirang. And yet, if you were to ask any Korean, for example, if you were to come to me and ask, do you know Arirang? Can you sing me a verse? I would not sing any of the top 3 that we went over. I would sing this 4th version, the Gyeonggi Arirang, the Seoul Arirang. And this would be the version that most Koreans would think synonymous with the word Arirang. And this version is very significant because it was released exactly 100 years ago. Did BTS know this? I 100% believe that they knew and wanted to celebrate the 100th year of our Arirang in this Gyeonggi Seoul version by coming up with their own twist to it. And when we think back to what Korea was going through in 1926, it was full annexation by imperialist Japan. It was a time period when being Korean was actively erased. Koreans were not allowed to speak Korean. We were not allowed to have our last names so that we would all take on Japanese names. We were not allowed to wave our flags. We were not allowed to badmouth the loss of our country. And if we were to do any of these things, we would get plucked off the street and violated, mutilated, and then massacred in the most inhumane way possible. So it's very significant that in this time period then, in 1926, a movie comes out in Seoul. The name of that movie was called Arirang. It was made by a Korean independence fighter who had gotten a job in the film industry that was heavily regulated by the Japanese government, and somehow was able to come up with a plot filled with nuances and signs and symbolism that only Koreans can understand, and bypassed severe censorship by the Japanese government. At the end of this movie is a version of a fully fleshed out Arirang. It was the biggest movie of the year. In fact, it played for a year and a half. And almost every Korean that could in Seoul went to go see it and understood immediately this movie is about us and our Han and the loss that we feel of losing our country and our sense of self. This is the version of Arirang that was sung on the streets when independence fighters put their lives on the line to declare our independence, to fight for our independence, to sabotage the Japanese agenda in trying to reclaim our country back. It was a song that we sang on Independence Day in August 15th of 1945, when we declared independence and reclaimed our autonomy as a country. It was the song that we sung as a nation during the Korean War, when our country was split into two and remains that way till today. It was the song that we returned to in the 70s, and North Korea and South Korea had to compete in one joint team. It was the anthem that we picked to play if we ever won a medal, because our countries were split. Arirang is the theme song of every significant milestone in Korean history since its inception, with every version instilling within it a deep sense of Han. And to explain what Han is, like RM has been saying in his interview, that Koreans come from Han.
아리랑은 한이 담긴 음악이고.
Han is a word that is kind of imperative to understand Korean history, to understand Koreans, really. The word Han is like a deeply rooted pain that is a direct result of experiencing harrowing distress and injustice. It's a very repressed sense of woe and pain that we feel that is born from circumstances that are not resolved. So the pain continues to fester. You know, a lot of dictionaries will simply sideline Han as mourning, loss, grief. But Han is much deeper than just mourning. Like when you mourn something, you know inherently that you will go back to normal after this time period of grief. Like you're able to assimilate back into society after you deeply experience this grief. You heal, you get over it. Han is not like that. Han is a sense of loss, yes, but it's like you've lost something so great that you lose your identity. I really hope I'm like giving this word justice here. So why do all Koreans have Han? And it's because this trauma of our country has not been resolved. We're still at civil war with our own country, and will be probably for my lifetime. It's because we are born out of centuries of oppression from being attacked. And I think we carry that from generation to generation. One of Namjoon's favorite interviews that he's done, speaking to a Western interviewer, kind of briefly touches on this, but in a very poignant way, the reason why Korea has such a fast, mass-produced speed with everything that we try to achieve and accomplish. It's because we have this Han, we have this desire and need to overcome the cards that we have been dealt through speed, through efficiency, through perfection. We don't tolerate anything but perfection. We've gone from a country of having nothing to something that's so industrialized and fast and rapid and a leader of change. Of course, naturally, things are going to be lost in the cracks when anything is trying to level up in such a short period of time. It comes from Han. And yet, when you look at all the promotions that BTS has done so far for Arirang, it's not one that's a message rooted in grief or sadness or feeling dignified to speak out on all the injustices that have been done to us. They framed it in a way where it was very clear it's a love song. To who? To ARMY. And when you think about it like that, they're going back to the roots of what Arirang's lyrics say. So when we look at the lyrics of Arirang, The refrain that comes to mind is Arirang, Arirang, Arariyo. And when you look at the etymology of these words, arida is a verb of feeling tremendous pain in your heart. When Koreans say 마음이 너무 아려, they don't say that lightly. They mean it to express pain in the highest degree, but it's not tangible pain. It's like phantom pain of a loss or grief or deep, deep sadness. 스리랑 is also a word that includes 쓰리다, which is synonymous to a type of burning that you feel. Like when we say, oh, 속이 너무 쓰려, that means, oh my gosh, there's a pain in my body that's synonymous to burning. When they say 아리랑, 쓰리랑, 아라리요, they're experiencing a deep, deep pain that comes from a lover who is on their way to leave them. So when BTS is chosen to make their comeback stage, here in this plaza where 이순신 장군 is facing, they're coming back with the most iconic song of the people that's been with the people for all of history, and the coordinates that matter the most in Korea, which is the palace, the Korean royal palace. All to do what? To tell us that they love us. Arirang.